Welcome to the Sharkpreneur podcast with Kevin Harrington and Seth Greene. Kevin Harrington is the inventor of the infomercial, one of the original sharks from the hit TV show Shark Tank, and has generated over $5 billion in TV and digital direct response sales. Seth Greene is the world's first trusted authority on cutting-edge direct response marketing, a best-selling author, and the only 3-time Marketer of the Year nominee. On the podcast, Kevin and Seth interview sharkpreneurs who share straight talk on what it takes to explode your business.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com. Welcome to the podcast. This is your co-host, Seth Greene. Today, I have the good fortune to be with Lance Hood from ARC Franchising. Lance, thanks so much for joining us.
I'm glad to be here, Seth.
We are glad to have you. So let's go back in time. How did you get started? Because I think you've had an interesting career path before ARC.
I started, I honestly thought I was going to be a mixed martial arts fighter for a living, but there just wasn't the money in it at the time. So I thought I better focus on my second passion, with this business. And then I started interviewing people just like you. Interviewed a lot of the top names at Nightingale Conant and did teleseminars and loved it before moving to franchising.
Awesome. Okay, so tell me a little bit about that business experience and interview experience before you decided to move into franchising.
Yeah, it's one of those things to where my passion was helping people in personal development. I was that guy that you said you had a challenge and I'd already read the book and I would hand you the book and nobody wanted the book. I just loved helping people. And I was like, you know what? I got into real estate, made a tremendous amount of money, and it gave me the ability to rethink my life. And so I decided I wanted to spend it kind of helping people and all that. So I started interviewing all these great teachers, authors, speakers, and I talked them into offering their programs for 50 to 80% off. And we just had a ton of fun, learned a lot, and I just loved interviewing stuff and helping people.
Well, congratulations on all of that. How did you land in the franchise space?
I saw that people didn't always utilize the coaching. They would spend money on coaching with the intention, and the second they paid for it, they would feel better immediately, but they didn't actually, sometimes they wouldn't even go to the coaching calls. So they would do that. There's no coaching call. They wouldn't show up. And I was like, well, how do I make sure that people get the result? Because they want a result. And so I realized in franchising, the franchisor gives you an opening timeline. The bank gives you stuff. Everybody's holding you accountable. And you can see the 3-year history of the results of the franchisees. I just thought this was a better way to help people get an actual result.
Awesome. And then what does ARC stand for?
Applied Research and Collaboration, because when I was doing the previous business where we would interview success coaches and everybody, what I found is that the greatest results came from all the research. We would do nothing but research and testing and split testing and surveys and everything else. And then when you collaborated, just like with mastermind groups and stuff, but people collaborating together, and those were the 2 key things that had the greatest results.
Okay, and then your mission is to empower entrepreneurs to build a life that they love, not just own a business. How does that influence your day-to-day work with candidates?
Well, you look at it like franchising is kind of like a race car. So, the franchise itself, that business is like the car. And the franchisor is kind of like that pit crew that's there guiding you and coaching you and telling you what to do. But you have to drive it. And what I have found is people tend to look at the franchising as something that is more of a they think is like a stock investment. I'll just buy this, I'll get the same results. But even with the stocks, you're betting on the people working and running those companies. And so the difference in franchising is you're betting on yourself. And so if you are going to have something that works. It's not just like picking a business because you like the numbers. It's picking a business that also works with your personality, your goals, your identity. There's certain things you just wouldn't want to do or you wouldn't enjoy, and that's just going to make it harder. And the harder you make it, you're just going to make it just miserable to do. So let's find something that works for you as a person, not just that looks good on paper.
That makes sense. Can you walk us through your discovery process? Because you're searching through like 900 plus different options to find the right one for your clients.
Yeah, I mean, I usually take about an hour of really asking people questions. The first half is typically educating them on how the process works and how to think about it, and then what is a strong business and understanding their finances and everything else. The second half is going through the different types of businesses that exist. And then I have the task of finding the things that meet all those criteria and are still available in their area. So that process takes about an hour. It takes me about a week to do it. And the average validation when you talk with a brand is anywhere from 1 to 3 months.
So, hour interview, week of research, and then 1 to 3 months to get to the next step. Um, you provide some things that I think no other franchise brokers or representatives do. Can you talk about your weekly coaching calls and accountability and all that and how that works?
Sure. Well, we follow up just to make sure that people the things people do things they don't need to do and they get off track because if you go out to Google and you start searching stuff, all you find is things that have been SEO'd to be out there. It's very expensive to show up on the first, I don't know, 10, 20 pages of Google. So those are just designed to really steer you toward a company, away from a company, or make you into a lead, essentially. Get paid for your clicks. So you really have to focus on the real information, which is with the brands. And to keep people focused, I always set up a short 20-minute call so that we can communicate a lot because I'm kind of like the hub between you and your team. Your team is your franchise brand, your funding source, and then myself. And I keep that communication going because a lot of things fall apart and drag way out because people don't have that constant communication and authentic communication.
It's almost like, again, you're positioning yourself as the quarterback of the team. Let's say the process comes to a successful fruition and the person opens their doors. Do you stay involved at all after that?
That is a personal decision with the people. Some people I maintain friendships forever. I've had people that just called me this week and they're like, Lance, do you remember me? I'm like, I think so. And they're like, it's been 6 years. I have two more kids now. And I'm like, okay. But I stay engaged as long as they want because I really understand. I start researching the top franchisees to understand what it is, what's the mindset and habits that make them more successful than others. And I share that with people. But some people, the second they get an introduction, they just kind of see me as out of the process. And other people, we stay connected for many, many years.
You mentioned your exposure to, hundreds of different franchise opportunities, sectors. What sectors of the economy, what sectors of the franchise world are the most promising right now?
That's a hard question. You could say, well, in general, I would say, if you look at profit margins, probably home services. And the reason is lower startup cost, higher transaction value per item. So you're just putting things in your favor, but it still doesn't work if it's not part of your what works in your area and what works for you as a person. So it's hard because then you're just buying something without that impact of what it would be for you to actually run it.
That's interesting. What are the most common mistakes people make when looking into buying a franchise?
They think you can just go and look at these awards lists and these lists of top brands that some blogger wrote. When I started, I looked at that, and a lot of these people would be like, "Why are you calling me? I'm not even a franchise." So that's how little research people do when they come up with a top list. And the other thing to get those awards, those are generally slower growing brands. The reason they're slower growing brands is because to apply for the award and try to get the award is because you're trying to increase your sales and exposure. The fast growing brands can sell the entire country out in like 2 years. So they don't need that stuff. And you only know about it when you're connected to the brands that are developing them. It's not really a public knowledge type of thing. So people are chasing the wrong thing.
What are the traits and backgrounds of individuals who tend to succeed with your process?
I would say people who are actually, one, you're qualified. So that could be financially, it could be you have that management experience. I like people who are not afraid of sales and who have experience managing people because those are two very strong and important skills in running your business. And you have to have some confidence in yourself. Some people that shy away from things, I just think that if you're already kind of like 1 foot out, I just don't think that you're going to do whatever it takes for you to succeed because you're the person who's going to care about your money and your business more than anyone else. So you have to care about it first and foremost.
Absolutely. You've helped so many people be successful in this space. Can you share a success story of one of them?
I just had somebody actually open up. He's a lieutenant colonel. He's was flying helicopters, and now he's selling businesses. He chose a franchise that offers businesses. It was in his passion. He already does management coaching. He's like a you know, magician, and this guy's awesome. There are people from all different backgrounds.
You emphasize transparency over hype. How do you help prospects reconcile and do all their due diligence while avoiding, the hype in all the franchise and business opportunity magazines?
Well, I think that you go straight to, the two places to validate is really the franchise disclosure document, which you'll hear is called an FDD. That's an important document. But the other part, I think, is digging in with the brand and the franchisees. And I've found something. We should do a lot of split testing and a lot of surveys to really try to find best practices. And it would get very confusing and it was hard to tell what worked until one day I'm like, oh, I'm stupid. We should only be looking at the top 10% and the bottom 10% because that's the contrast that gives you clarity. If you look at all the results, it's hard to have clarity because the people in the middle are making some good decisions and some poor decisions. So I always tell people like validate if possible, because sometimes they don't want to flag their poor performers and sometimes their top performers get over introduced. So, but if you can, try to talk to a couple of top performers and a lower performer, and the contrast will make things blaringly obvious. And you're going to want to follow the top performers.
That's a great way to look at it. You have achieved so much success, not only in your business, but more importantly for your clients. What's your biggest challenge now?
Scale, you have kind of like your product and service, and then you have your conversion, and then you have traffic. But the infrastructure, what keeps it together. And as much as I love communicating with people, sometimes tech is frustrating. It bottlenecks me.
Understood. Your passion is obvious. What do you like best about what you're doing?
I like to take somebody who was number two in a company and realize that they're doing most of the work for the number one person. They're actually working harder sometimes than the person running it, and helping that person go from second place to first place for themselves and believe in themselves. Because the reason people don't jump on a business typically is they see other people do it and they want it, but they don't have the confidence that they can do it. And franchising isn't right for everybody. Business ownership isn't right for everybody. But if it makes sense, let's find something that, will work with your skills and give you the best possible outcome.
For someone in our audience who's thinking about franchising for the first time, what's the first step you recommend?
Well, it does. I don't need people to prepare at all because sometimes they go off in their own direction and they start coming up with these hypotheses in a vacuum. And I would just say, just go to arcfranchising.com. You can book a spot in my calendar. And if you're qualified and you want to proceed, I'll help you.
Is there a question that no one ever asked you that you wish they would?
I've had about every question I can think of. I would just say that people who I think already, I would say this. If you are doing research ahead of time, like you're like, I'm 2 years out, you just have to look at it like real estate. If you see a house down the street that's for sale right now, and you're like, I'm going to buy that in 1 to 2 years, what are the odds it's still going to be for sale? So I would say just come when you're ready, because that's when all of the data and research is going to matter.
Awesome. What cause are you the most passionate about right now?
I would say there's a couple causes that I have always been behind. I just think like the microfinance, to giving loans to these small entrepreneurs around the world. And I've always been a big believer in like Smile Train. I just think that that's one thing that you can spend money on one time that makes a lifelong impact for somebody.
That is beautiful. For our folks who are watching or listening and want to learn more, where's the best place for us to send them?
arcfranchising.com. Right there, there'll be videos on stuff. You can learn about everything, learn about the process, and when ready, book an appointment.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. We greatly appreciate your time. This has been Seth Greene with Lance Hood of ARC Franchising. Lance, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Seth. Appreciate you.
Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. We'll talk to you or see you next time.
Why do so many businesses struggle while others seem to explode overnight? Do you wish you had the secret to this type of exponential growth? Now, I've scaled more than 20 businesses to over $100 million, and it's not just luck. In my new book with Mark Tim, Mentor to Millions, you'll learn the repeatable framework I use in all my business ventures for massive success. Order at kevinmentor.com and get over $1,000 in bonuses. Head to kevinmentor.com.